Gunther, Mr. Gunther, if you could um, go ahead and unmute, just confirm that you're the applicant on this project and let me know who's with you there. If you could unmute, Mark. Okay, let me start with Miss Hallett. Miss Hallett, could you unmute?
Okay, how's that?
Good.
Can you hear me?
Great. I can, yes. Hi, welcome. Mark, if you could just confirm that you are Mark Gunther and you're the applicant on the project and let me know who you're with there.
Yes, Mark Gunther, Wickman Gunther Architects, agent and applicant for the property owner, Howard McIlvaine.
And I am Howard McIlvaine, the property owner.
Okay, great. Welcome, guys. Is it MCLLVAIN?
Yeah, that's confusing. It's MC, capital I, then an L, V as in Victor, AIN.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Got it. Yeah.
All right, Miss Hallett. Hi. Is that your name? And could you tell me who you represent here today?
Sure. My name is Teresa Hallett. I am property manager for Mount Adams Apartments in with Town Properties, and I manage 1001 Celestial and 1009 Celestial, which are neighboring to the house 1015 Celestial, and we have our parking lot that is adjacent to it as well.
Got it. Okay. Welcome. And I see that we have Trey Sheldon from the zoning department that just joined us here. Welcome, Trey.
David?
All right.
On the to you now.
Yeah, right. Mark, anyone else you're expecting to join on the applicant owner side for this?
No.
Okay, great. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to read through our hearing script. This will basically just cover the procedure for the hearing, and then we'll get started. So this is the January 10th, 2024 session of the zoning hearing examiner docket. My name is David Sturkey. I'm the zoning hearing examiner for the city. The case before us today is case number ZH20230178. The purpose of this hearing is to allow applicants and any potential opposing parties to testify and to offer and refute evidence and testimony. This hearing will follow the rules found in the zoning code and the supplemental rules of the zoning hearing examiner. All testimony and evidence that an applicant or any potential opposing party wishes to offer must be presented at this hearing. The hearing will proceed as follows. The applicant, the applicant's attorney, or the applicant's agent will first present the applicant's case. So for our purposes here today, I'll allow Mr. Gunther and Mr. McIlvaine to tell me about the project, what exactly it is they're proposing, the relief that they need, and then, of course, why they think that relief is appropriate. I'll then go to the public, and so this would be Ms. Hallett. I'll allow Ms. Hallett to provide any testimony that she would like after the applicant has presented its initial case. We'll then go over to Mr. Sheldon. I'll allow him to provide any testimony in addition to his staff report. In the event that any party testifies or offers argument in opposition to this application, the applicant will then have an opportunity to respond to any of that testimony that was offered in opposition. And then finally, the applicant will have an opportunity to make any closing statements. I'll have some questions along the way. After all presentations have been made, I will close the hearing. Decisions may be expected within 2 weeks. I may limit or exclude any testimony that I deem irrelevant or outside the scope of the application being considered. I may interrupt any speaker to ask questions or to make any comments. In the event of any technical difficulties with the Zoom technology, I'll do my best to troubleshoot those on the fly, but to the extent there's some defect that prevents us from meaningfully going forward with this hearing, I may continue or postpone the hearing at my discretion. Okay. Last thing I need to do is just swear in all of our witnesses. So if you intend on providing any testimony here today, making any comments, asking any questions, really doing anything other than just strictly observing, zoning code requires that I swear you in. So if that's you, or if you think that's you, if you could go ahead and raise your right hand. I need everyone to answer out loud. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Great. Thanks, everyone. All right. Mr. Gunther, are you ready to proceed?
Sure.
Floor is yours.
Okay. Well, this project is, I guess, the renovation of this residence, which is Mr. McIlvaine's private residence, that began a few years ago internally. And the initial concept included a external addition to the existing residence. But that then morphed into the space that was going to potentially be considered for a enclosed room became a open room. So I think that's kind of the concept that is being witnessed on the plans and elevations, is we're creating this exterior room, if you will, with a door to the street, a sliding gate on the side, and the existing doorway into the house in the corner is where the pergola extends into the setback zone. So it's something that is a manifestation of what was going to be truly a interior space. It's now an exterior space, but I think Mr. McIlvaine, he can speak to this, that he sees this as this sort of indoor-outdoor extension of his residence, and hence our request for these relief components.
So let me
Okay.
let me just fill in a little bit. And so in the process of searching for a house, my agent, one Lee Robinson, showed me several different homes, a couple of which were in Mount Adams, but this one in particular had a particular immediate emotional connection with a lot of the things that I wanted to do with a smaller house. I was coming from a larger house in Anderson Township with lots of acreage and outdoor areas and so forth. But this little house presented itself in such a way that it sort of checked so many of the boxes, not the least of which was the golden ticket of having a garage in Mount Adams. So that was pretty wonderful. But the other thing about it is that the part that we're actually discussing, having this very small footprint that is actually in many ways the dimension of the house itself, was very much an attraction. And so the idea that there's this lovely little 140-year-old house on the corner of Celestial and Filson, but oh, by the way, it has a little piece of dirt in the back that's approximately 30 foot square, and that leads right to the garage and the connection therein. It's almost calling to me saying, put glass across the back of the house so that you can see out into this lovely little contained area with this cedar wall, if you will, with vineyard lights overhead, and a seating space and plantings and so forth. But it would be visually and mechanically attached to the house in such a way that when you're in the kitchen, which is the entire back of the house now, you're looking out on this exterior space that will both visually and experientially give you this extended living environment. So it actually was an incredible enhancement that actually kind of envisioned from the very beginning of looking at the house.
Okay, great. Thank you for that, the background there. Just on some of the finer points here, for either of you, what are the actual dimensions of this new room, and in particular, what are the side setbacks that are proposed?
Well, the fence, basically the room is the yard. That is, we had this existing yard space at the rear of the house, and stretched basically from property line to property line. So that's where we were taking on there was an existing chain link fence that was removed on the side towards the adjacent apartment building parking lot. And so putting the new wood fence at that location, and then coming in and taking from the edge of the house to the edge of the existing garage as the sort of line of connection, if you will, to define this exterior space, the yard space. So it's basically kind of without really recognizing, the idea of, well, setbacks require you to kind of fit to that dimension. We use the existing dimensions of the house and the garage, you know, the connection points for these screening elements, as the logical places to put them, instead of, you know, kind of maliciously putting it, you know, in 8 or 10 feet off of the property line that would suddenly have this thing sitting in the middle of the yard, or partially into the yard. So that was the genesis of why they are where they are.
Sure. Okay. So will the new addition, because there will be a new addition in the rear, correct?
Well, the addition, as it were, and some of this, you know, I guess if the addition, so this gets into the weeds here relative to matters of zoning code. We did a trellis, so there is a overhead trellis element above the rear doorway, the glass wall that Mr. McIlvaine referenced. Across that whole back of the house where that glass wall is, there is an overhead trellis that will contain it will have a cover. Not only will have a cover of wood to allow for a growth of vining, et cetera, you know, for greenery, but also will have a plastic, corrugated plastic sheeting that will provide protection from rain and the weather. But that we always kind of considered as part of the landscaping, if you will, the hardscaping, that in conjunction with the fencing, that technically is considered an addition to the residence. And so that is, you know, but there is no other physical, actually enclosed space that is to be considered.
Got it. Okay. So
when we speak of room, we're speaking totally metaphorically, not actual built space.
Got it. So just to zoom out one more time, I have 2 items that I see here that are requests for zoning relief. One is for a right side yard setback of 3 feet. That is in regards to the actual trellis structure.
Correct.
That is receiving that setback. And then I have a variance of approximately 2 feet for a fence height that will measure 8 feet total. Is that right?
Yes, and that is relative to, we have as I mentioned initially, we have a doorway, a sliding gate, if you will, that is part of the entrance from the street into this rear yard area. And so to have a sufficient height for that, there's a slope in the grade of about, you know, 18 inches or so. So where you start off with a fence at 6 feet at one end, it grows to 7.5 feet at the other end. And so to have a level top to that fence is why we're requesting the relief from the vertical maximum.
Got it. So part of the fence is actually conforming.
That's correct.
Closer to the garage. Then
Yes.
as the property slopes downward, the height of the fence increases to keep the level consistent. Got it.
That's correct.
Okay. Let's see. All right. I think that's all the questions I have for at this moment. Unless you had anything else you wanted to say, I'm going to move on to public comment.
Nothing else at this time.
Okay, great. Ms. Hallett, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just had a couple questions. So it sounds like the fence will be closer to 6 feet tall on the Filson Avenue side, but as it slopes down towards our property at 1009 Celestial, it'll be closer to 8 feet tall. Is that correct?
On the other side, there's an existing, on your side, I should say, there is an existing concrete wall that this fence will sit on top of that. So it's the combination of the existing concrete retaining wall that's higher than the yard, taller than the yard, and then the fence on top of that. So basically the fence is 6 feet and the wall is 2 feet to come up with the 8 feet.
Okay. So but the fence will be, so you're asking for the extension. So will the fence be like over on our property then?
No.
Let me attempt to share my screen.
Yeah,
Can you guys see that? Yeah.
Yes.
So this is the view from the parking lot, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So the fence here is going to remain 6 feet
Okay,
throughout, but then this retaining or this wall here that I think exists already,
That's correct.
that will add the additional 8 feet height from the parking lot grade.
okay.
Is that right? And it'll be in the place of an existing chain link fence, like the exact same
Yes.
location.
Yes, the chain link fence is still there, and it's kind of in disrepair. It's rusty and it's coming apart in places. But the beauty of that side that faces the little slope going down to Town Properties parking lot is a beautiful straight platform on which the wall, the intended wall, will rise from that. It won't extend an inch at all into the hillside there. It'll also, I think, be a benefit for the parkers. I know that we went through my intent to be a good neighbor. We got rid of just a massive amount of wisteria that was growing over into the parking lot, onto people's cars. We had that removed, but it's now everything is going to be much more segregated between the stuff that originates in my yard and your hillside. So it'll be a much more separated kind of a situation.
Okay, and then the door, it looks like, is on the Filson Avenue side.
Yes,
The
yes,
fence
that's correct.
door. Okay.
And the
then
back door to that house, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, the main entrance to the house, if you go back 140 years, was the front door with the lovely little iron gate. But the inclusion of this glass, pretty much glass surface door, along with the floor to ceiling glass windows across the back of the house, was located specifically against that Filson side corner, so that we could accommodate this, what will probably be the most frequently used entrance to the house for all kinds of things. It makes moving much more easy, just sort of day-to-day kinds of things. Parking my car on Filson, coming in that way will be facilitated, and so forth.
Okay, and then there'll be a pergola or a trellis over that, but it looks like
Yes.
drawings that it's just on that first floor. So there's no like
Yes.
second floor or anything. Okay.
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Thank you for clarifying. I don't have any more questions.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ms. Howard. I appreciate your questions. Thanks for being here. Could I ask one more question of the applicants? What is the house currently vacant? Was it occupied when you bought it? What's the?
It's currently occupied. We have completed building permit interior improvement already. This is phase 2 of this project since Mr. McIlvain acquired the residence.
Got it. Okay, great. Thanks. All right. Trey, would you like to add anything?
Just that hopefully that's explanatory. I know Mr. Gunther provided some photos of the existing lot. There's a little bit overgrown there, and obviously the homeowner's desires to turn that into a nice little oasis or garden, rear garden for themselves, for him. There is currently a kind of a concrete wall over on the side facing the apartment buildings, which is you can see actually some of Mr. Gunther's photos there. So it's really just the side facing Filson that, for the most part requires what I would consider requiring relief, the change to it. And it's only over a run of about 17 feet, David, because gates and doors and things, if you can imagine that's either A, it's part of the addition and considered a door, or if it's a gate, it can be up to 10 feet in height. So really, they're just transitioning from a 6-foot fence at the garage incrementally to where they're about 7.5 to 8 feet at the side of the post that ends the gate and ends the extent of the pergola rearward. It seemed reasonable in the context that because there's minimal slope here. At first, when I reviewed this, I didn't think of it as a hillside, and I ran this started to run it as a corner side setback review. but it's technically a hillside review, even though there's only about 6 feet of slope over the entirety of the property. But the reality is, if you were trying to stick with the aesthetics of the fence, and you notice the sliding, you had up figure 7 of mine, Mr. Gunther's proposed west elevation. You can see that it's necessary almost to be level with the fence in a form follows function kind of way for this sliding barn door to slide over. Does that make sense to you? If it was tilted down, it would not work. And so it just seemed unreasonable and impractical to both change the functionality of that gate, and also at the same time you're in the hillside, and the only way to bring this area to level to then put a 6-foot fence across there is to fill, right? Is to create a retaining wall or start filling it in, which then becomes an equally it's a either or kind of issue. Because then you're in here trying to fill to bring up the grade to make it only 6 feet. So it seemed like maybe this is the lesser two evils, if you will, and it's a better aesthetic presentation. And lastly, Mr. Gunther, when I talked to him earlier, this was some months ago, but he had indicated that this would also help not both in the short term with kind of aging in place here in the home, but also resale. That right now you have a set of front steps that requires you getting up about 4 or 5 feet up to the front of the house. And this is gonna, it's gonna make it a heck of a lot easier to get groceries or something directly into the kitchen, or as the owner pointed out, it's much easier for him to, Mr. McElvain pointed out, just even moving anything if you're trying to move some household goods or whatnot in and out, because this little kind of ramp here at the entry gate is an allowable projection. And it would allow you to pretty much go from the sidewalk straight, open this gate and go directly onto a level surface, then into the house without having to carry things up and down steps. So I think for really somebody of any age, this is something could be convenient. And Mr. McElvain, if he's chosen this for his retirement home, which it certainly sounds like he's charmed by it, it'd be doubly important for him.
Okay. Thanks, Trey.
Well
Appreciate your
put.
work on the staff report. Okay, I'll go back to Mr. Gunther, Mr. McElvain. Anything you want to say in closing or otherwise before we adjourn here today?
No, other than just, I think Trey, kind of put the cherry on top relative to just, the universal design features that were part of this, kind of overarching exercise. In that Mr. McElvain's, as he said, moved from the big house into this more manageable kind of environment. So we hope everyone agrees this is a good thing to do.
Let me also say that I've sort of shopped this with my neighbors, my wonderful neighbors on Filson Street, and I think to a person they're very much in favor of it, particularly if I leave the gate open and offer wine.
That's always a helpful bonus there for a neighbor. Yeah. I'm all in favor of more of that in Cincinnati. So we'll leave it at that. I've had a chance to review the application materials, the staff report, and I think based on that, and then based on the testimony here today, I agree that it would be impractical to strictly enforce the zoning code to this application. And so based on all of that, I'm going to approve the request. I need to formalize that approval in a written decision. As I mentioned at the beginning, that decision typically takes about 2 weeks. I'll do whatever I can to get that out to you as soon as possible. Once I finish that, I put into a PDF and I'll email it to everybody. I think Mr. Gunther is familiar with this process, but I'll email it to everybody who's in the hearing here today. So you all have a copy of that decision that will lay out exactly what the relief is and what's been approved. Mr. Gunther, once you have that, you can work with Trey and he can approve the zoning permitting on his end. Any questions from anyone about any of that?
I just have a quick question. So after it's approved and all the paperwork goes through, how long does that usually take? Or I know you said 2 weeks, but when would the project start?
So once I issue the decision and Trey approves the permitting, assuming there's no other building permits or anything else that's holding up the project, they can begin construction immediately. But when that actually happens, it then becomes a matter of the builder and the architect and everyone on the project when they want to do that. So Mr. Gunther, if you want to respond to that at all, you're happy to if you have any idea, but
Well, our plan review from the building permit review, if you will, has already been approved. So we were just waiting for this zoning approval. And as I understand it, Mr. McIlvain's contractor is got him scheduled for March. So we're like just figuring, the time it takes to complete the paperwork, and oh gosh, who wants to try to dig a hole in the middle of winter that, come that, first breath of spring, we shall commence.
And do you know how
As-
long the project will take?
Yeah, as I've shown this, as Mark says, to my preferred builder who's done a lot of the work on the inside of the house as well. Just looking at the plans that we had initially drawn up, which are pretty much the essence of what you've looked at, he didn't think it would take more than a couple of weeks at most. But he's also he's a like any good contractor, he's a busy boy, and so he's penciled me in for March. So it's going to be contingent, I think, on a little extended period of good weather, and that. So but again, it's a relatively minor exercise in building, so should go pretty well.
okay. Great. Well, if anyone has any other questions in the meantime, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm happy to answer any questions, or if you want a status update on the decision, happy to provide that as well. Well, if there's no other questions, that's it. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you to everyone for your time and your testimony. And Mr. McIlvain, good luck with the project.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate all of your support. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks all. We're adjourned.
Bye-bye.